Today I want to compare three popular badminton rackets from Yonex's Nanoflare series. I want to compare the Nanoflare 1000 game with the Nanoflare 800 game and the brand new Nanoflare 700 game, so that we can better get a sense of how these three very similar intermediate rackets stack up in terms of speed, power, and ease of use. Now, if you're not familiar with Yonex's racket series, the Nanoflare rackets basically are the fast, defensive, speedy type of category that tend to be popular for doubles. And the game editions within each of these series of rackets represents the intermediate version of those rackets. They also come in a play edition for beginners and tour and pro for more advanced players. I have had all of these rackets on court for 10 hours each to see how they play. I bought them with my own money to give you an unbiased comparison, and before I did, I had them restrung to my preferred string, the Yonex BG80 at 10.5 kilos in tension. I'm Aske from Beast Badminton, and let's dive right in. Now, my first experience with the Nanoflare 1000 game was a lot of fun. It was my introduction to the headlight fast category of badminton rackets, and I was really impressed with how many shots I could block that I didn't expect. You know, when things are going fast in doubles, you're out of position, you're off balance, and you're just trying to get the racket onto the shuttle and hope you're able to push it back over the net. And so I was really impressed with how much it improved my defending. If I were to rank them, I found that the 700 game was the fastest due to the more headlight nature than the two other rackets. It's just moving that bit faster through the air, and because it's very flexible shaft, I found that it sometimes moved a bit too fast for my timing, and it took some adjustment to get used to that. Even if the difference isn't super crazy, this one just felt that bit faster. Now, both the 800 game and the 1000 game feels that bit closer to being even balanced and thus that bit slower. The 800 game felt a bit stiffer, a bit crisper, and a bit more responsive than the 1000 game. And for me, that made it feel a tiny bit slower because of that sort of whippy effect that I felt with the 1000 game. The difference was very little, and I think for most of us, we probably wouldn't even notice the difference in speed between these two rackets. Next, let's look at power. Now, interestingly, even though these Nanoflare rackets are in the defensive and fast category, most of the marketing for all of these three rackets tend to be positioned around power. And coming from a marketing background, my best guess is that people are already expecting this series to be fast, and so there won't be that much difference in terms of speed between these rackets. And I feel like when I talk to players about what kind of rackets they like, everyone wants the same thing, a fast racket with power. So it kind of makes sense that Yonex is going in that direction. And so the 1000 game is marketed as the intermediate version of the 1000 set, which set the Guinness World Record for the fastest smash under set conditions, so not in court play. The 800 game is marketed as a repulsive racket, good for counter drives and counter attacks, whereas the 700 game is marketed as being good for clears. Now, since all of these rackets are in the lighter 4U weight class, they're not really prone to generating power as easily as with more power-based and head-heavy rackets. And so I found myself struggling generating power when I was in trouble with all three of them. In terms of generating power in a single shot, like a full-on power smash, I found that the 1000 game gave me the most power in just a single shot that was hit cleanly. On the other hand, throughout an entire game, I found that it was most consistently the easiest for me to generate power with the 800 game, even if it wasn't as much power over a single shot as with the 1000 game. So in a single rally with the right shot, I found the 1000 game to produce the most power, but over the course of a game, I found the 800 game to be the most powerful in that regard, even if it was that bit less on full power shots. And it was much easier for me to get clean half smashes and stick smashes out of the 800 game. Last, I'd rank the 700 game because it's just that bit more headlight and it's quite flexible as well. Now let's move on to the final aspect, ease of use. Now, in terms of ease of use, I look at two things. One, how easy it was for me to switch from a different racket to that racket. And second, how forgiving it was on mediocre or bad days when we're just not as good as we usually are. Here, I found the 700 game to be the most easy to use, and it comes in best in that category. It's the most flexible. In fact, it felt crazy flexible, and I found it quite useful for high beginner or lower intermediate players, even though it's categorized as a racket for intermediate players. Maybe we just need a different kind of way to categorize within the intermediate level, since there's just so many of us. Second, I have the 800 game, as it wasn't as easy to use as the 700 game, but at the same time, it was easier to use consistently for me than the 1000 game with its slightly smaller sweet spot and more sort of whippy effect. Both of these two rackets, the 800 game and the 1000 game, seems more suitable for the mid-intermediate player or the upper intermediate player, whereas the 700 game seems better suited for the low intermediate player. It's particularly because I found the 1000 game to be the most difficult to adjust to. It had quite a dull feeling when I wasn't hitting it cleanly, and it took quite a bit of work for me to get used to playing with it. And so in a single session, it wasn't that easy for me to adjust to coming from another racket, like the Arcsaber 11 Play, for example. So the 1000 game was a lot of fun when I hit clean shots, but when I was under pressure, I found that it just wasn't that easy to hit all the different shots, whether in defense, overhead shots, or tight net shots, as cleanly as necessary. Now, each of these rackets were surprisingly fun in doubles defense, which is my favorite aspect of the game, but I struggled with all of them in singles, especially due to the power when you're pushed to the backcourt and you need to really send something far to the opponent's rear court in order to get out of trouble and sort of reset the rally. It was just difficult for me to generate enough power consistently with all the three rackets. If I could pick one, I would go with the 800 game, but in general, I would probably pick something with more power and more head heaviness if I was playing singles more regularly. Which one are you most interested in? Leave a comment below. And as usual, if you're interested in comparisons between shoes, rackets, ratings, and other guides, go check out the blog. I'm Aske from Badminton, and I'll see you on court.